This Choircast podcast episode is brought to you by The Collective at TheQuollellective. The Collective is a bold, independent media hub committed to truth, justice, and calling fascism what it is. While other outlets bend the knee to Christian nationalism and corporate dollars, The Collective stands tall, queer, loud, and unbought. And you can find my articles there as well. Right now, you can get 20% off a yearly subscription using our exclusive promo code UNBELIEF. That's UNBELIEF. Unbelief. You're going to get 20% off when you go to The Collective, hit the subscribe button, and put in the discount code UNBELIEF. If you're looking for the site, it's TheQuollellective.com. That's TheQuollellective.com. The Collective and our promo code UNBELIEF. I think you're really going to love it there. Welcome to the Unbelief Podcast, your journey, actually our journey together beyond inherited beliefs to a spirituality that works for you. I'm your host, Jeremy. I'm a deep skeptic, also a pastor. We can fix that later, right? No? Damn. Hey, it's another book club episode of the Unbelief Podcast. Today we are diving into a fascinating book of strong women in the ancient spiritual text of the Bible. It's the book of Ruth. And last book club episode, we talked a little bit about the context and then went through the very, very early part of the first chapter where where Naomi and her sons move off to Moab, a land that is considered horrible, so horrible that people should not allow even the 10th generation, 10 steps out from where they are in their lineage to be Moabite. They go there. The two sons of Naomi leave and marry and then die, and we are in this really desperate situation right now when we get to verse 6. So in verse 6, it says, "Then she started to return with her daughters-in-law from the country of Moab, for she had heard in the country of Moab that the Lord had considered his people and given them food." You remember the reason that Naomi originally left Israel was twofold. One, her husband died, and two, there was no bread. There was a famine. And so this is saying that she hears that there's food coming back. And there's this like play on words. Bethlehem, the house of bread, right? Is what Bethlehem means. And so the house of bread had no bread. And now it sounds like there's bread coming back to the house of bread. And so it says she set out from the place where she had been living, she and her two daughters-in-law, and they went on their way to go back to the land of Judah. But Naomi said to her two daughters-in-law, "Go back, each of you, to your mother's house." This is a really interesting moment. The beginning of Naomi telling her two daughters-in-law, Ruth and Orpah, that they should go back. And you'll notice that she says, "Go back to your mother's house." This is a very strange phrase, a very strange phrase in Hebrew, because normally it is your father's house. Everything is patriarchal, patrilineal, and so to say your mother's house gives a little spin on it, because these two women had been married to Naomi's sons. And so they were considered no longer a part of their birth father's house, right? They were considered a part of of their husband's house now. The only surviving person involved in that family is Naomi, who is now a single woman with no male descendants and no husband, who is in this desperate situation. And so they technically can't return to their father's house. Like, they're no longer part of that house. But the idea that she expresses here, it's just like this beautiful and very human way of explaining it, of phrasing it. Go back to your mother's house. And in other words, your mother will have compassion on you, will be empathetic, will make your father take you back in. Right? So go back to your mother's house. I love the way this sort of subverts the patriarchal system and the assumptions that it makes, that the women here are the ones who are compassionate. The women here are the ones who will take this desperate situation and find a way around it, will take care of each other. Yeah. I think about the women in my life who have found me in desperate moments and have taken care of me. It makes me think, they're like Naomi. They're like these mothers Naomi is talking about. Yeah. So it says to go back each of you to your mother's house, and may the Lord deal kindly with you as you have dealt with the dead and with me. This is a blessing that is doing a number of things. The first thing that's happening here is it's the first occurrence in this passage of a Hebrew word, hesed. And hesed is a fascinating term because here it is translated often as something like faithfulness. In the New Revised Standard Updated Edition, you will, as you have dealt go back to each of your mother, may the Lord deal kindly. This kindly is the word, but it kindly is a good translation, but there's more nuance here. The Hebrew word hesed is a specific kind of kindness or faithfulness, and it refers to covenant faithfulness, and the covenant faithfulness is a bigger deal because it means that there is a covenant that was made and a covenant that needs to be dealt with. And ultimately, this word hesed is going to be used several times in this chapter. And Naomi is basically going to say God has not had that towards her, even though God has had that towards his promise to Jerusalem or to Bethlehem and to Israel. And what she's saying is like, you have had hesed with me, Naomi, and with my sons. You have been faithful to the covenant that you made to them. And interestingly enough, in the marriage covenant, there is a part in that culture of also promising to take care of the mother-in-law. But basically what she's saying is like, you have been faithful to the covenant you made. And what she's saying now, this blessing is a blessing that is sort of letting them go forward, like saying, I can't do anything else for you. You actually see the same form of sort of benedictory blessing in 2 Samuel chapter 15, verse 20. This is the moment when King David is fleeing from Absalom's insurgency, and he's losing everything, all of the people, all of the clout. It is not looking good for King David. And he has a foreigner named Ittai and his men, and he says, no, you've got to leave, right? And it says, may the Lord show hesed and faithfulness to you, right? May the Lord, he's like saying, look, I can't do anything. I can't fix this. I can't bless you. I can't make good on any sort of covenant maybe that I made with you or that you made with me. So let's transfer that to God. Let's let God take care of you, because if you stay with me, it's not going to go well. And that's what Naomi is saying. She's saying, you're off the hook. Stick with me. If you stay with me, I'm not going to be able to help you, right? I can't do the things that you need me to do. You need to go. And I am sending you out with a blessing of my God. And right afterwards, you get a sense of what she's saying she can't do. The Lord grant that you may find security, each of you in the house of your husband. Remember, their husbands have died. And so this is, may you find another husband. May God give you another husband, and so that you can be taken care of in this very patriarchal culture. I wonder if you've ever been in that place on either side. Right? Like realizing you can't, you wished you could be there for this person, but you can't. And you want to just say, look, just go. It's going to be fine. You need somebody else who can take care of you, who can meet the needs that you have that I wish I could meet, but I can't meet them. Yeah, it's okay. It's okay to leave. Like I'm letting you go. I know that maybe you want to help me, but it's not going to be good. Just go. I wonder if you've ever had to do that. It's a harrowing thing to let people go for their best interest, right? For them to have a better life. Or if you've ever received it. I think about this a lot as someone who's adopted. My birth mother had to do that, right? My birth mother had to let me go, knowing that she couldn't care for me in the way that she felt I needed to be cared for. She needed to let me go with her blessing, with the blessing of God. Yeah, that's what's happening here. And then it says she kissed them and wept aloud. Ugh. The level of grief that is there. Yeah, I've been there for sure. I'm sure you have too. The letting go, but it still hurts. Right? Even though you're doing the right thing, there's still grief. There's still loss. Yeah. She kissed them and wept aloud. And then it says, they said to her, no, we will return with you to your people. So right here, Orpah and Naomi are like, nope, we're staying. And Naomi says, no, turn back. Why will you go with me? Do I still have sons in my womb that they may become your husbands? Turn back, go your way, for I am too old to have a husband. Now, to a modern audience, this might sound a little dramatic. Right? I'm too old to have a husband. But if you take this, sort of rewind this a little bit and figure out about how old Naomi likely is. So women were married when they were around 15. And so then being 15 when she was married and having two sons, her husband dying, the sons are going to have to likely get married as early as possible in order for all of the cultural norms to work out. So she's probably, best case 32 when her sons are ready to marry, and sort of enter the marriages with Ruth and Ruth and Orpah. So if some or like all of the time that's mentioned in verse 4, the 10 years, happens during the time of those marriages, Naomi could be in her early 40s and Ruth and Orpah in their mid-20s. Now, the life expectancy for a woman in that time is 40 years or less, right? So if she's in her mid-40s, she is very old, and she is saying like, look, I'm not going to live a lot longer. There's not going to be a man who's going to marry me to have a wife for a year or two, right? And so when she says, like, I'm too old to have a husband, I mean, she really is, especially in that culture, right? Her prospects of finding a man to take care of her are not great. Yeah. Yeah. The other thing that is happening here in this passage is a word that's happened over and over again already in the beginning of this story in the book of Ruth. The word that is used here is this word to return. It actually appears about like a dozen times in Ruth chapter 1, and this idea is that this is echoing, this return word is sort of building a momentum and a beat that makes you feel like it's the word that is used when the Jewish people return from exile, when the Jewish people return from Egypt, right? This is a powerful, potent word, right? They are returning from this being in a foreign land, in the land that is not okay to live in, with the people that are not okay to be with, all of that. They're returning. And a bunch of scholars actually say that what the sort of brilliant writer of the book of Ruth is doing is sort of creating a mini exile and exodus, right? Sort of linking Ruth in this story to the sort of broader covenant story that we find in the Bible. Yeah. And I like it. I like that because you actually see this done over and over in ancient spiritual texts like the Bible, the way that they connect other people's story back into the bigger story. And I think that's something that when we are reading an ancient spiritual text, right? We're not reading it to be a perfect history. We're not reading it as if God wrote these actual words with God's spiritual hand or lightning bolt or whatever. We're reading these stories to find ourselves in them. And over, these sacred texts, they tell the story of another person in the words of a bigger story, right? In the words of the Exodus, saying like the Exodus, yes, that is its own story, but people, individuals experience Exodus in their own life. They experience exile and return. Yeah. That, if you let it sink in, that'll give you chill bumps right there. Because I have been in exile, not in Egypt, not enslaved. And then there's a moment of return. And that return is not always wonderful, right? Because when you return from exile, you don't always know exactly who you are, because you're not the person that left. Right. But you, in some ways, when you are returning, you have this imagination that like, oh, I'm going to return back to this better, wonderful, whatever time. But you're a different person. You're not returning as the same person. And you're not returning to the same place. The place has changed as well. The people have changed as well. So there's anxiety in return. And when you're returning from exile, you're not returning with all of the things you need to survive. You are returning to a place where you are going to have to build that again. Yeah. Exile and return. Exciting. Also hard. Also fraught with all kinds of potential for horrible things to happen. And yet you were in exile. And when you were in exile, you long to return. And the return is hopeful and complicated. So that exile language here, yeah, that's what it is. Naomi is having to return from exile, right, to a place where they talked bad about her because she moved to Moab with her sons, and she corrupted them by allowing them to marry Moabite women, right? The women that we mentioned last week, the spiritual leaders were saying, no, if you've got foreign wives, you got to divorce them, right? That's where we are. She corrupted her sons. Yeah. But it's home. It's where her people are. And if there's any hope for her in this desperate situation, it is home. So she's returning there. But she's clear-eyed. She's anxious. She doesn't think it's going to be much better. And she doesn't think she's definitely not going to be able to, provide for these daughters-in-law. And she knows the people there. And there's no way one of them's going to marry a Moabite woman. Can you imagine the scandal? Yeah. Yeah. So when we're reading here, this return language, the Ruth and Orpah saying, no, we will return with you. It's a hard thing. But Ruth and Naomi keeps pushing them to stay. And then she says a word here. She says, no, my daughters, it has been far more bitter for me than for you, because the hand of the Lord has turned against me. Remember, she blessed them, saying that may the Lord bless you. And just before this, we've heard that the Lord is blessing Bethlehem, right? The famine is ending. So we've got the Lord blessing these people, and then Naomi saying, yeah. He's been blessing people, but oof. No, he's been dealing bitterly with me. He has turned against me. And then it says, then they wept aloud again. Another weeping, and Orpah kissed her mother-in-law goodbye, but Ruth clung to her. Now, it's important to not give Orpah a bad rap. Orpah is doing exactly what Naomi said. She is actually trying to take care of herself. Maybe Orpah is also trying not to be a burden to Naomi. Whatever the case is, we're not supposed to look down on Orpah, right? In some ways, if you're reading this in the ancient world, Orpah is the wise one, right? Yeah. But then it says Ruth clung to her. Yeah. Ruth clings to Naomi. The word in Hebrew of cling, it's not an uncommon word in Hebrew, but in the way this works out, it sort of feels like a callback to Genesis chapter 2, right? The creation of man and woman, and you remember there's this famous phrase where Adam sees the woman and says, "This is bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh." And then it says, "And therefore a man leaves his father and mother and clings to his wife." Yeah. And so what this word, this phrasing, and it happening in this context, it is very much an intimacy here. This isn't just any relationship. Ruth and Naomi are experiencing a deeply intimate bond here. Yeah, Ruth clung to her. It has a sense of marriage. It has a sense of the deepest sorts of commitments, the most intimate sorts of commitments. And I can tell you, in a time of desperation, someone having that kind of intimate commitment to you, wow, it can get you through. It can get you through some really hard times when somebody clings to you like that. So she said, "Look, your sister-in-law has gone back to her people and to her gods. Return to your sister-in-law." Again, Naomi pushing, and now talking about their gods, right? And her people. This is important because this is like all of this national, all of these identity pieces, her family, her people, her God, and the nationality and the religion are in this moment are tied together. Your identity as if you are a British person, if you are an American, if you are somebody who is a South African, right? You will have a national identity, a people kind of identity. But here, the religion and the people identity are tied together. So to leave a religion is to leave your people. To leave your people is to leave your religion. It's an intense thing. So Naomi's pulling out all of the stops. No. Go. These are your people. These are your gods. You need to stay here. This is the place for you. And in verse 16, but Ruth said, "Do not press me to leave you, to turn back from following you. Where you go, I will go. Where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord do thus to me, and more as well, even if death parts me from you." So look, I mean, this is so powerful. Like religion and ethnicity, they're like intertwined. People didn't at this point in time convert, right? In a modern sense of the word from one religion to another, because it was also entwined with your ethnicity. And so Ruth here, the Moabite, right? Voluntarily renounces her native identity to embrace Naomi's people, a new God, right? The God of Israel. This is why the text repeats Moabite here, right? She is choosing an uncertain future. Even here it says, "Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried." This is like completely, like everybody was buried with their family, and it was a huge part of life and death. She's saying, no, I'm leaving it all behind. And so she's choosing this uncertain future as an immigrant in a hostile land, right? They are hostile to Moabites, out of love and chesed. And that's a kind of covenant faithfulness. Yeah. Yeah. Can you imagine? Can you imagine the weight of that moment? I'm going to be an immigrant in a land that hates me and my people. And she's going to be there with this old woman. In some ways, what she's saying is like, I am choosing an old woman over a young husband. Yeah. And it says, when Naomi saw that she was determined to go with her, she said no more to her. Yeah. I mean, this story is modeling a relationship for us, is modeling commitment for us, is modeling what real kindness is. Right? If you love somebody, if you want to really be kind to somebody, it requires sometimes sacrifice, right? Using what you have, risking what you have for the other person. Is that person going to hurt you? Yes, they are. Are things going to get worse before they get better? Probably. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because they're your person. And when somebody's your person, you risk things for them. It's not every relationship. But that's the kind of relationship that people desire at the deepest core of their being. And it's the kind of relationship that we can create. Because you get the sense here that in this moment of desperation, there are two daughter-in-laws, and they're trying to be faithful to their commitments. And what it appears to be happening here is there is a choice by Ruth to deepen this relationship, take this relationship to a whole other level. And that's something that we can choose to do. You don't have bandwidth to do this with everybody you meet. Probably not healthy to do this with just anybody. But yeah, I wonder if there's somebody in your life that, if you think about it, it's time for you to take that relationship to a deeper level. You know? Like, is there a person like that for you? Maybe you're not ready to go to this level, but where you could begin to create this kind of relationship. Yeah. If you can build these relationships, they change everything. But really, relationships change everything, right? And finding places where you can exist and have relationships with people that can support you and help you is so important. That's why we have this thing called Not Church. Not Church is it's a community of people who are exploring spirituality together, with people of all different kinds of spiritual identities, and it is so loving, so respectful. The people in Not Church are a real, honest to God, supportive community. We talk about the trauma, the good, the bad, talk about the Bible. We talk about all kinds of spiritual practices from different sources and what's working for people. And when things go down, when life gets hard, we are there for each other as well. I have always wanted to find a religious community that was all of those things and non-judgmental, and nobody was telling you you're going to hell because you are exploring this spiritual practice. Yeah. I think you'd love it there. And I'd love for you to try it out. All of us, or at least most of us, have some religious trauma around being manipulated out of money by churches. So we don't ask for donations. Everything we do is pay for what you get. And so it's $3 a month. You can go to patreon.com/skepticpastor, patreon.com/skepticpastor, and subscribe. And look, if it doesn't work for you, you just stop paying. It's fine. Just $3. Also, if you're listening to this podcast, would you share it with somebody? Anybody who's interested in this kind of thing, we'd really appreciate you helping us get the word out. And of course, give us ratings, all the stars. And if you really could do us a solid, write something in one of those ratings, give us a review, share us online, talk about us in your social media, tag me in it. I'd love to collaborate with you on that. But yeah, all of that stuff really helps. That's it. That's the podcast. Shout out to the Choir Network, to Patheos, to Matthew and Keith, who make everything happen. Now, get out of here. Go do something to make the world a better place. Okay? We'll see you next time.